Right to my very far right, Kristen, you want to stand up? This is Kristen Jenson. She is the co-author of a new, great, groundbreaking book for prevention. You want to hold it up? It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. Many of you know about it. If you don't, you are crazy. You need to. It's a great book. It's available out at your booth as well.
We sold out.
Sold out. Of course she did. It's available online.
Amazon,
Deseret Book, those places. So, Kristen, anything else you want to say? She's amazing. She's not from here. You're coming from Washington area, so she traveled far to be here today. Next, we have Dina. Stand up, Dina. Dina. Well, let's give Kristen a round of applause as first. Sorry, Dina. We'll do the same for you. Dina, she is not also from here. Dina's from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Living there now still, and perhaps moving. We don't know.
Yes.
Yes, good enough.
I'm moving to San Antonio.
San Antonio. So yeah, was that a good response? I don't know.
It's gonna be awesome.
So Dina's amazing. She is the founder and the president of Educate and Empower Kids. How many of you have heard of Educate and Empower Kids? Gone to their website. They have great material. They have a strong blog. They have they have a book series that helps you again on the preventative end of things, help educate youth on the harmful effects of pornography, as well as kind of have that sex talk. It's really great. I'm probably butchering it. You can kind of describe it a little bit more. Yeah. Okay. So that's Dina. Give it a round of applause to Dina. And then I will be the third member. I apologize, but I will be the third member. No one more cool. So my name is Clay Olsen. I am the founder and CEO of Fight the New Drug. We have booths out there for Fight the New Drug and then also for Fortify. And I've been doing this for quite a while, 5 years now. I've been on the board for a good 4 years, and it's been a lot of fun. So we will start taking questions. Is that how we're going to roll? Judy? Where's Judy? We'll just start taking questions. If anyone has a question, come up to the microphone, or Judy, you can come read one off of the list that you already have if no one stands up. We'll go for the silent, awkward moment. We'll see how that goes for a second.
Oh, no.
Okay, right away.
I was going to ask what strategies you guys have found have been the most effective for getting people to talk about the issue, making it less taboo, getting people to join the movement.
Go ahead.
I think you should start. Yeah, go ahead.
So what strategies, I'll just stand up here. What strategies are most effective to help people get involved in the movement, the grand movement? Okay, so there's a lot of ways to answer that. I would say that one of the biggest strategies that we have found is to, how we take this the right way, but to make it cool to be a part of the movement. For so many years, being anti-porn was not the coolest thing. We did a survey with about 1,700 of our fighters, and we asked them this question. This is interesting. We asked them the question, how, in one word, please describe what it means to be anti-porn and what you and your peers think it means to be anti-porn. And they gave us words like outdated, boring, prude, and a number of other things. We asked them the same question. Okay, in one word, please define what it means to be to kind of what the porn culture means, or to be a part of the porn culture. And what you and your peers think. And they answered this, very interestingly, they answered this way. Cool, hip, young, level-headed, and so take those lists. Which one do you think is more, it was social suicide for a young person to associate with? Anti-porn. Which one is like, if you want to fit in, you want to be accepted, and you want to be a part of the crowd, which every teen wants to be a part of, which one do they have to subscribe to fit in? Porn culture. We have to change that. We have to change that. We need to take a cue from the porn industry, the porn culture, and make anti-porn cool, hip, young, fresh, level-headed, and scientifically founded. So again, one of the strategies that we use, and this is just us, one of the strategies that we use, and we're talking more to the teenage audience, make it cool. Make it cool to be a part of it. Second thing I would say, and we'll let others answers, but the second thing I would say is like help them understand the why, because a lot of individuals, once they grasp the why, many times, with other things, we talk about the harms of pornography, and we kind of say, or the harms of something, and we tell them just don't do it, because I said so, I'm your parent, or whatever, and they kind of rebel against that. But if they can get the why, a lot of times they'll be more aggressive in fighting it than you even are. And that's what we're finding with the youth. We give them the why. We tell them how it's harming them on a neurological level, and they're like, "What? That's not cool. I don't know that it could do that to my brain, or it could change the way I look at others. What it's doing to our relationships? What? I had no idea that it could actually impact the way I connect with other individuals, and how it can completely kill love, and then how it can impact our society. What? I had no idea that pornography was linked to sexual exploitation, to trafficked women, to violence against women. I'm not okay with that. And we always ask the question when we do the assemblies, we say, how many of you, after learning these three things, that porn impacts the brain, the heart, and the world, how many of you, that's enough for you to say, that's not cool, I don't want to be a part of that? And it's an overwhelming, resounding kind of hands up in the air, yes. So how do we get them involved? Make it cool, and give them the why. That's what I'd say. What about you guys?
I definitely agree with the why. I'm all about the why for parents. So Clay's audience, mostly kids and parents as well. My audience, definitely parents. For me, it's about separating sex from porn, because the porn industry has tried to teach us that this is sex. This is all there is. It's just sex. Instead of, in my opinion, it's McDonald's cheeseburger sex. It's like as if, and people try to say, oh, well, if I don't watch porn, how will I know what to do when I have sex? And it's like saying, if McDonald's shut down, would you not know how to eat anymore? No, you would still know how to find food and make a hamburger, right? So same kind of thing. It's trying to separate. For me, for parents, it's about separating it, making it, no, this is not sex. This is porn. This is what they have created as their idea of sex. So helping parents and community leaders realize what they're trying to teach us. I think that's very empowering for people to understand what this is doing. Yes, the brain research, and also, of course, the social research, what this is doing to us as a culture, helping people really understand what is happening, because people want to go, oh no, it's fine. Oh no, this is just a fantasy. This is just fun. But if you can connect those dots for them, and like most of us have seen those dots connected in our life, if we can kind of help other people see what this is doing to us as a culture, what this is doing to us as women, okay, and that this is only holding us back, every single one of us, then that, I think, helps people understand, and then they can go, okay, yes, okay, I understand. That's right. This is not sex. This is not intimacy. This is McDonald's cheeseburger sex. Okay.
Good.
No offense to McDonald's.
No offense.
I hate McDonald's.
Offense.
So the question was, how can we get more people feeling good about coming into this movement and fighting pornography? And of course, I agree with everything that has been said. What I try to get parents to do is to teach their children, and when their children have a plan, kids, they're not ashamed. They don't know to be embarrassed until we teach them to be embarrassed, right, about whatever. And so when you teach a child what we have in our book, the Can-Do Plan, when you teach them how to think about it, when you teach them how to react to it, they'll do it. So one of the steps in the Can-Do Plan is name it when you see it. So if you see pornography, name it. Say, that's pornography. Now, you can teach a child, don't yell, right? But say it quietly, that's pornography. And in my earlier class, I told the story of a 5-year-old who was in a store who pointed out a Cosmo magazine and said, that's pornography. Well, it got the mother going, writing to the store. The vice president wrote her back, and they removed that magazine from the checkout line and to a different part, and they covered it. So think about how empowered that child is. I think if we have the courage to say the word pornography to our children and to our friends and bring it out of the dark where it has power and into the light where our kids have power, our kids are going to actually provide a lot of that impetus and motivation for us to get involved and to spread this and to help others realize what a how important this is to fight and to deal with. So.
This might have been answered with that your last answers, but how do you approach somebody who comes to you and says that they don't see it as bad? Like they're like, I can see that. They'll say they can understand how hard porn is bad, but they don't see how everything else isn't bad. And when you explain to them, they still don't understand. Any tips?
We'll switch it up.
Go for it.
So I honestly, when I started researching the book and thinking about it, I honestly really had to think about that. Like, I always just assumed it was bad, right? But I didn't know why it was bad. So why is it bad? And that's, we've talked about telling them the why. Why is it bad? Well, because it's not real. And it's not showing what a real, intimate relationship is all about. Pornography is fake, and it isolates people, and it does the opposite of what you want. So people get into it thinking, it's going to help my love life, it's going to, help me in some way, and it ends up hurting them because it's isolating. And when I talk to teenagers, and I don't talk to as many as Clay does, but when I do, I teach them that, pornography will take you and your brain in a completely opposite direction that you want to go in if you want a happy marriage or a happy, intimate relationship with your spouse. It will teach you everything that's opposite. So sex will become an isolating experience. You will not be able to be intimate. If you masturbate to sex, it's late. To pornography, that's going to lead you in a completely opposite direction than you want to go. And you're training your brain to be sexually aroused to a solo experience, to novelty, constant novelty. So it does take some thought. And I think what you said is that there are a lot of people like, what is so wrong with pornography? And I know that even at UCAP, they've gone out and tried to get funding, and people say, well, what. And Jill Manning wrote a book, What's the Big Deal About Pornography? It is a big deal, but a lot of people don't understand that it's completely opposite of love and intimacy.
I love that question because that's kind of what our organization is kind of set up to do. Our whole motivation at Fight the Drug is to change the conversation. So we don't want to just speak to the choir. We want to change the conversation, and that's why we've positioned ourselves to not be religiously affiliated or legislatively focused. We're really focused on just kind of being able to get into public schools and start that dialogue. So the question that you pose as what do you say to the person that says, it's not that bad? Oh, that's rich soil for me, because I'm just like, that's where we come at them and we say, we hit them with research. This is no longer an area of opinion, people. This used to be to each their own. Some people thought it was bad. Some people thought it was not a big deal. And you just kind of said, agree to disagree. Not anymore. And we can't, we on this side of the coin need to recognize that, because we have science and facts and personal accounts to stand on. And so this isn't something that we can just kind of say, that we can say, well, that's your opinion. We can say, well, this is peer-reviewed research on the brain. This is peer-reviewed research. There's amazing material coming out of Germany from Simone Kuhn, he's a neuroscientist out there, from Valerie Voon from Cambridge University, and a lot of things coming from the States. Science has finally caught up with truth. And the truth is that pornography harms. And so now society has to catch up with that. So that's our job. So individuals that say it's not that big a deal, in a loving, non-confrontational, non-kind of combative way, we say, that's interesting you say that. A lot of people thought that. I even, I kind of thought a little bit of that a long time ago. But then I learned to research, and here it is, and here it is. And by the time we get through the process of kind of talking about it, even in casual conversations, most individuals kind of sit back that used to have the opinion that it was harmless, kind of sit back and go, oh, I didn't know. I'm like, yeah, most people don't. That's okay. Now let's help other people know the same thing. That's what I'd say. Yeah. So a lot of it is on our website. We're coming out with more. So fightthenewdrug.org, we have a lot of articles written on the impacts on the brain, the heart, and the world. And you can kind of download those and read those. We also have a book that we're releasing here shortly that we've been working for 2 years on, interviewing neuroscientists and therapists, world-renowned from all over the world, and interviewed hundreds of stories of addicts, and we've compiling all that research and all that information in a book that's coming out shortly. But for now, a lot of it is on our website, as well as all the websites of individuals that are represented here. I know that a lot of them have good research on their websites. And so use it, leverage it, harness it, because it's going to be up to us here in this room to change that dialogue and change the conversation. But we can do it. We're doing it.
Really briefly, because I think they already made great points, but I think what I find when people usually have that perception that pornography isn't that bad, it's because they don't know and they haven't seen it. Or they're dealing with the definition that's 20 years old. They're dealing with the definition of when we were kids. They think it's Playboy. And it sounds silly, but yes, there are many people. So they're either watching it themselves and they're so used to it that they can't see through it. Just like if you're in an abusive relationship, you can't see all the horrible things happening around you because you're right in the middle of it. You know, when you're doing something, you think everyone else is doing it. Every porn watcher I know thinks that everybody watches porn because it's normal. It's like when I drove a Honda Pilot. I thought everyone drove a Honda Pilot. It's like all I could see around me. Oh, and when I was pregnant, I thought everyone was pregnant. It just seemed that way from everything I looked at, right? But then there's also that disconnect where people have no idea. Before I got involved in this a couple years ago, I thought, this is just a couple naked pictures. Like, what's the matter with you? Like, whatever, right? Until I started researching it and realizing, oh no, this is so much worse than I ever could have possibly imagined. They have literally done everything to the human body save kill it, right, in order to provide this kind of deviance for people. Not that every single item of pornography is that violent, but most of it is pretty horrific. So I think when I hear that question, I ask them, I say, well, what do you think porn is? Or tell me what you think it is, or what have you seen? And it's always something much milder than anything I've seen within 3 clicks. So that, I think, for me, is the first step in that conversation, is finding out what that person really means, because they usually have a pretty antiquated definition of pornography.
Ron.
Hi. Okay, so to build on that, someone not representing your group, but that uses your information, came and talked to our church a few weeks ago. And so this is for you or anyone, but when you have these conversations and you're saying it casually and, with not negativity, just non-confrontationally, saying things to friends or acquaintances or family, what are just some basic, 3 things to say or something that would get your point across? Like, we've had so much information today that it's pretty overwhelming. And so if there are just some really simple truths to express the issues that it causes, that would be awesome.
Okay. I think the simplest way to start is to let people know that it's violent and misogynistic. What is misogyny? It's hateful towards women. That's the first thing I tell. This is not something that is uplifting to women or helpful. This is violence against women. So that's the first simple thing I say. The next thing I talk about is that it hijacks our sexuality. So when most of these children who are being exposed, before they have formed true opinions about what sex is, what sex should look like, what sex should be like for them, there's this industry coming and telling them, boom, 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 before they can even decide if they're gay or straight, before they've even made any decisions about dating, marriage, whatever, this industry is right there ready to hijack their sexuality. Number 3 is that it kills intimacy. There's no intimacy. I've heard porn described as sex without hands. Right? Because there's no holding, hugging, touching, sweet things going on in pornography. It's without intimacy. So that, to me, those are 3 simple points that you can make right away. It's misogynistic and violent. It hijacks your sexuality, and it steals. There's no intimacy in it. That's That's as simple as I can get.
Well, I'll just add one more. In that it can become an addiction. So, for many, many years, the anti-pornography industry or movement was trying to say this is just a morally wrong thing. And now we're finding that really a better message is it is a harmful thing. It's a public health crisis. Look at all the cost to society. Look at all the jobs lost. Look at the addiction. Look at the marriages. Half of all marriages, maybe even more, 50 to 60% of marriages name internet pornography, internet obsession, as a major factor in the divorce. So if it's breaking up families, how much, so that's another thing. So just the addiction alone, I think people were always saying, oh, we don't want people to become addicted to anything. And there are a lot of people that do not understand, and it's a surprise to them that it can become an addiction. So we try to teach parents to teach their children that, yes, it can become an addiction. Here's what an addiction is, and a little bit of the brain science. And, I had to put a plug. We do have a blog and a website, pornproofkids.org. So we've got a lot of this information on it as well.
So what would you say if, as parents, we just wanted your recommendations for a list of internet safety guidelines for families?
Internet safety guidelines.
All of us have those on our websites. So Pornproof Kids, Fight the New Drug, Educate, Empower Kids. All of us have. Do you guys have a search? You guys have a search function on yours that if you were to look that up, you would find those kind of guidelines everywhere. I believe in limiting time, so there should be a time limit. You decide that with your child, because you have all those other competing things, right? Because that, to me, in the end, is the whole problem, is how we're disconnecting as a society. Take stock. How much time are you guys spending in front of screens, not, television? How much media are you consuming each day? So that's first. First, take inventory of everywhere that you're spending your time online and with screens, right? And you'll be surprised, and you'll be kind of sad. Like, this is my life? And I know I was surprised at what I saw, and for my children. And then creating that kind of a guideline and then looking at websites. And if you believe in filtering, having a filter is another huge internet safety guideline, of having a filter, choosing filtering for your family. We had some great booths out here with some great resources on different filtering. Filtering has come a long way. It's not perfect. I don't know if it ever will be, but for right now, we still have come a long way there. As far as different websites, that I have an Apple computer, and there are very specific parental controls that you can do for each child, and I have them different for each child that I've set up, again, according to time and what their habits are and homework and what I'm going to allow for each age group. Do you have what other specific, you want just like guidelines? Okay. So I'm like, I'll let you guys, 'cause I know they have way more. So, but all of our websites have lots of. That's our shtick, the whole thing.
I would just add to that and say that technology is great, and you can add accountability software, which is not a filter. It just kind of watches and it reports to an accountability partner. You can add filtration on your computers, and that's great. We believe in those, just as I think all of us do. However, we also strongly believe, and I don't think they would disagree with me on this, in the fact that alone is not the solution. It's a Band-Aid, and education is first and foremost, helping them become their own filters, their own accountability, desire for accountability. And then the technology can aid that and help that, and especially for young kids on the filtration side. So, so on that education side, in addition to the resources that were mentioned, our website, we have at fightthedrug.org, we have what we call the Parents Guideline, and it's a red document, and you can download it for free off of our website. And it's just a document that helps you understand what to do if it's becoming a problem, how to prevent it from becoming an issue, and stuff like that.
I'll just add one thing. my exercise today. When you give a child a piece of technology, a device or whatever, my recommendation is that you don't give it to them and say, oh, this is your iPhone, this is your iPad, this is whatever. It's the family iPad. It's my iPad, I'm letting you use it. There's a very different psychological difference there. And because children are really not ready to take ownership of everything that that technology allows them. And when I hear of 6-year-olds with their own smartphones that are going to school and showing pornography to other 6-year-olds, it's just crazy. So again, I would say as a family, this is the family iPad, this is the family smartphone. I still have the password. Parents maintain a little more control over that.
Earlier, Kristen, you were talking about one step of helping our children. You were saying that to help them understand the confused feelings they might feel when they see pornography, they might feel excited or they might feel like, that's horrible. But can you elaborate a little bit more, like maybe a conversation or a dialogue you'd have with a child about their feelings?
Sure.
We have a couple of blog posts on this, so you can go and read those. Jeff Ford, who was a speaker here, he has a great video about this. So you can look it up, or you can go on my site and put in Jeffrey Ford, and find it. But it's like 3 steps to teaching your children about their confused feelings and about how porn is kind of tricky and tricks them. So I think the first thing is to ask, how did your body feel when you saw that picture? And to make it, not a shameful thing that, oh, well, I felt kind of really, sometimes they'll have a physical reaction. And then how did you feel? How did your emotions feel? Did you feel traumatized? Did you feel scared? Did you feel embarrassed? So that's your emotional, and sometimes kids will feel repulsed at the same time they're feeling kind of very excited and enticed by it. And then you need to talk to them about, what the purpose of sex is, and how there's a time and a place to have those feelings, and those are going to be good and positive feelings, and a very positive way to bond with your spouse. And so giving kids that context, and also helping them understand that porn is tricky, and it may give them these 2 different feelings. Anytime we understand something better, right, we're calmer, and we can deal with it and we're stronger and more empowered in order to deal with it. Does that help? Anyway, go watch those videos by Jeffrey Ford. They're really great.
Are there any numbers on how many teens we think are addicted to pornography or using porn here in Utah?
A lot.
10. Just kidding. It's more than 10. No, I don't know any stats specifically that say that this is the amount of youth dealing with pornography in Utah or even nationwide. We do know that it's a massive issue, are you aware of a specific study that indicates the?
Yeah, there's a couple of studies. Of course, can I just use this? Yeah. With studies, you have to be careful, because there's just so much to a study, how it's done,
National representation,
the methodology, right.
And when it comes to teenagers, they're often just, the teenage studies they don't always trust them, because were they?
Yeah, a lot of teens will
Was the
lie.
parent present? Was the kid lying? So there's a lot of difficult things, but we often say that by the time they leave high school, 90% of our kids will have seen pornography, and that's just a tip of the, that's just a tip of the iceberg
Yeah, I think
statistic.
So they did a study with college-age kids, and they found that 90% of the young men, the college age, said that they had used it, I believe, at least once in the last month. And then I think it was 30% for women.
Anna Bridges and Raymond Bergner in the University of Arkansas, they tried to do a study after a previous one that they had done measuring the impact that it had on relationships. They tried to do a study with college-age individuals to find out what it was doing to them. And they tried to gather a group of volunteers that were viewing pornography regularly and then a group of volunteers that weren't. The study never happened because they couldn't find anybody that wasn't viewing pornography. So again, that's not a number, but it is indicative of just how wide sweeping it is.
Although I will just add one more thing. There's a study, and I'm sorry, I'm like so tired I can't remember.
I know, I can't remember.
But there was a study that did show that talking to children, it was done University of Texas, that talking to kids at a young age, so they asked college students, about their usage of it and about had their parents talk to them about it. And they found out that the kids whose parents talked to them about it actually had much less usage of pornography than those that never were talked to, never, it was not a subject that was brought up or talked about. So I believe, and there were some other results in that study that were very interesting. And so from that, and that just came out in the last year, I think that we can surmise that it really does help to talk to kids. And I say talk early and talk often.
I love that. And to bounce off of that, Kristen, how many of you guys ever received the sex talk growing up? That was the kind of you had the birds and the bees conversation with your parents. And raise your hand if that was you. You had. How many of you never had any sort of dialogue with your parents about this? Are you guys okay? Do we need to kind of switch gears here a little bit? Isn't that incredible? I mean, today, in this day and age, if we are not talking to our youth, guess who is? Mm-hmm. The industry, right. Google. And oftentimes, we're not going to like what they teach them. So parents, we no longer have the luxury to not talk about this. What you experienced, those of you who never had the conversation, I had the conversation. My parents, my mom literally bought me as 8 VHS tape set of about the birds and the bees. And we sat down, me and her. Can you imagine? Awkward. It was so bad. We sat down and watched them, and I was petrified. I was like stone. I just could not move. So that's not good. But at least we had the conversation. So I guess my point is that to kind of bounce off of what Kristen was saying, it does help to talk about it. And the idea that we can say, well, my parents never talked to me, so I'm not going to talk to them. And I know I'm talking about sex, but this is now part of that equation. Sexuality is the conversation that we need to have, and how pornography hijacks that and the counterfeit to real love. And that conversation, if you're not having it, they're getting it. And it's not a good thing. And so we don't have the luxury to close our eyes to this. We have to be a part of this conversation. We have to stop sweeping it underneath the rug and start addressing it. And I know it's difficult and sometimes challenging. It doesn't have to be. And that's why organizations like these up here are there to help, to provide resources, tools, ideas, thoughts, communities to bounce things off of. But get in the game, for sure. If you take anything away from this whole conference, get in the game. That's it.
Is there any science or research done where swimsuit pictures lead into underwear, lead into nude pictures? Anything to back that up, and how do you protect your kids against getting into that pitfall?
Yeah. Do you want to do that? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't think there's a study on that.
Well, we just know what it does.
Yeah. Yeah, it affects the same. I don't think there's a study that shows okay, oh yeah, so he has, is there a study that shows looking at say Victoria's Secret, and that might lead to, a catalog, and looking at these pictures, there's an actual progression? There are studies that show, or there's people that usually have an addiction that will say, yes, they started with something simple. The thing is that our kids might be Googling boobs and they're coming away with absolute violence. Yes, they're curious. They want to see boobs, If I was 10, I'd want to see boobs too, right? They are just curious, and they're looking for simple things, but they come away with the violence. Straight up. So, I thought that there was a progression, but when I did my own research, I had to search for softcore. The hardcore was right there immediately, and a lot of you already know that. So, but there is the research that shows that that when a child or when anyone looks at, is it the Brown or is it Princeton University study about the bathing suits and that it uses
tool thing.
The tool thing. Is that Princeton University study that showed that they did a study of college-age men, and they showed them pictures of women in bathing suits, and it accessed the same part of the brain as tools and objects, like every single time. So they had their own brains working against them, right? So it's, but there has not. I have not seen a study that shows a progression from bathing suits. I'm going to look at bathing suits, but I look at it as, it's just curiosity. He was 6 at the time. It was my 6-year-old who got the Victoria's Secret catalog out of the trash can and put it under his pillow, and he was just curious, So when we had that discussion, there was no shame. What did you do? What are you looking at that for? It was like, oh, what'd you find in there? What do you think about this? And it was kind of, and he didn't know what. That poor child didn't know what to do, right? He was just curious, and I was not about to make him feel bad about having a natural curiosity, right? But I also said, there was a reason why it was in the garbage, and we had a discussion about that I hoped and that I tried to make as with no shame, as little shame as possible. I did not want him to take away any of those negative feelings for him having a natural curiosity. But as most of you know, that for any addict, they never started out. They didn't start with violent, or they didn't start with, like, say, child pornography, or they didn't start with the most sadistic pornography out there. It always started with just whatever was, say, available to them, and then it wasn't enough. They had to move on to more and more to satiate that need.
And that is validated in the brain science research and the literature that's come out, indicating that individuals that, as we view pornography, in fact, as we do things that we enjoy, pleasure chemicals are released into the reward pathway of our brain. And this is a natural process that we do when we're hanging out with friends or eating a good meal or listening to good music. And that part of the brain is activated. But that part of the brain can be hijacked. And oftentimes is hijacked with illicit drugs, but as well as pornography and natural addictions. And so, what we do know from the research that's come out is that that individuals release those chemicals and that flood the reward pathway of the brain according to what they're consuming. And so, for a young adolescent, 9-year-old, viewing a Victoria's Secret ad or looking at a JCPenney ad can trigger that same response in the brain and release those chemicals. Versus an individual that's 50 years old that's been dealing with an addiction for a long time, those ads don't do it anymore. And as we understand the progression of addiction, in order to just feel normal, they need more of it more often in a more hardcore version, and that kind of escalates. And so we do understand the escalation process based off of the neuroscience that we now have.
I wrote this down just because I have a very short memory. No, I like that you were saying that all devices in the family should be kind of the family's devices. I have 5 children ranging from 16 to 7. I really don't know how to step back now from taking away those smartphones and giving the other ones just the plain phones. Could you give me like some concrete, this is what they should have, this is what they shouldn't have, and should I just take it all away and put them away for bed every night? And they should always just be locked in a cupboard and with the guns.
There's an Amish community just down. We can. More and more people are joining.
No, but we definitely talk about just having a check-in. They check them out, because that's right, they do belong to you, right? So they can check them in. They can check them out during the day and check them in at night. And it's hard and it's a lot of work, but they're worth it, right? None of us want to do that. I wish I could just hand my kid the phone and be like, "Merry Christmas." It's not. It's much harder to monitor, okay? Because I did not always monitor. It's been in the last few years that we've started doing it. And yeah, it's more work. Just like every time my daughter downloads a song, I look at the lyrics. Is that my favorite thing? No. Is she worth it? Yes. So it's about taking all those steps. And if you don't have time, then you just say, I'm sorry, I don't have time, or I can't, you know what, this is a bad day, we're not checking these items out today. You're the librarian of all the media in your home, whether it's television, music, books, literature, and it is work, but it's more important than maybe the time that you spent on homework, or other things. This is their brains that you were protecting. This is their minds, their souls that you were protecting, that we want them they're still developing. So we have to just do our best. You're not going to be perfect ever, right? You're going to make mistakes. They're going to see it. They're all going to see porn, right? Okay, so we're just going to do our best to protect. There's going to be days when we mess up and they see stuff, but you're just going to keep doing your best every day on those.
And I would say that the checking them in at night is really important. I think recharging them by your bedside table is really important, because a lot of these kids, they'll be texting. Maybe they're not looking at porn, but they're texting and they're losing sleep, which is a health concern. So you can put it as, it's a health concern. I want to make sure you get enough sleep. And so we're going to recharge everything by our bedside. And also, when kids come to your house, their friends come to their house, have a little basket and say, okay, all devices with an internet connection, 3G, 4G, whatever, are in this basket. You don't need these, to play. You don't need these. So I know lots of parents that do that. And, sometimes you do have to introduce new rules. But I think if you can do it in a way of, hey, we're going to protect everybody. These are the things I've learned. And bring them on board and maybe get their input too, How can we do this? Get their input. Try to have them have some ownership, their ideas, not just like laying down the law. Get their input, see if they'll lay down the law first, then lay down the law.
Since every kid is probably going to see something, and it seemed to be usually with their friends a lot of times, how can we help them know an appropriate reaction or some, just to empower them so that they know how to handle those situations?
Mm-hmm. That's everything me and Kristen talked about today, right? So, Kristen has a can-do plan. If she wants to talk about it somewhere, I'll let her, she can go for that. But we talk about having that plan in place and having discussed it. And that's why I've let my kids know this is what's in it, so that when they do see it, they know it and they can go, oh, okay, that's pornography. But I also have, I want you to talk to me about it. What did you see, or what, because they're going to have feelings. Something that I was just saying to Kristen is I really wish we had some more research on the trauma that's involved when they do see it. Because what does that mean for a child who is simultaneously turned on and traumatized? How do you deal with that as a 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old child? That's terrifying. And that's why I want to have talk about it. What can they say to their friends? I've encouraged my children and other people when they talk to parents to speak up about it. Just like if their friends had marijuana or if they had pot or cigarettes, I'd want them to be like, that's gross. Why do you have, we're not going to do that. Or I don't like that. I don't believe in that. Just like how making it cool, like that is not cool to have that. Those pictures that's not cool. And having that conversation. I ask my children, do you think you can do that? Can you speak out about this? So not just reject it. Yeah, I want my kids to reject porn, but I want them to speak up about it. Because again, spreading that word, spreading this movement is also about speaking up and speaking out about it. So I encourage my children to do that. And I've had them, practice with me. Because for younger kids, I'm not going to say anything against my friends. I can walk away from it, but am I going to speak out about it? So I want them to speak out about it. But so have that dialogue of what might be in their language of how they can say no, how they can convey that to their friends. of that's not right, and also having them anticipate situations, right? So just not just saying, hey, somewhere out there you're gonna hit porn somewhere. So you can talk about, where might we see this? Help them visualize that situation. Is it going to be on the bus? Is it going to be at lunchtime? Is it going to be at a friend's house? Is it going to be at our house that you're first going to be exposed? And letting our kids know, you will be exposed. You're going to see this. So how are you going to deal with this? And when my kids go over to friends' houses, I ask the parents. I always talk to the parents. Do you guys have filters on your computer? Because for my younger kids, or I say, what are your feelings about this? I ask them straight up. Right? Do you guys watch pornography? Sometimes I will ask that to other friends. Yes.
What do you say if they say no? Like you're dropping a
If
kid
they say,
off?
oh, I don't, I do it before the drop off. I'm not like, so you guys don't watch porn, right? I don't wait till that point, right? I just don't. I'm not saying that you have to do that. I'm saying that is something that has worked for me. That yes, I do have those conversations when they're setting up a play date. Hey, I have some very strong feelings about this. I don't even want our kids playing on devices. They should be interacting like human beings do, right? So I love the basket idea. Yes, leave your phones at the door. I'm not going to have, or when my daughter's friends, they've said to my daughter, man, your mom is strict, but she's cool. And I'm like, that's right. That's right. Because they know I care about her. They know I care about my daughter, and they can see that I'm not doing this because I'm protecting them, and I care about my kids. So that's part of it too. But I have that conversation beforehand. It's not always going to happen, right? You're not going to be perfect at it. We're going to forget sometimes. We are going to have someone just drop our kid off for soccer or whatever. But it's the times that we can plan ahead, then yes, we are going to ask those parents, and so that our kids can visualize those situations, because it's going to happen. So I want my kid to not be like totally shocked at that experience. I'm like, I let them know these are the different situations where this is going to happen.
I'll just add that go ahead. It's just really quick. So when a child, because this happens on school buses and playgrounds and at school a lot, when another child comes up to your child and says, hey, I got something cool to show you on my smartphone, then that should be a red flag, and your child would say, well, what are you going to show me? Right? And then either they're going to say, and then that's your child's cue to say, you know what? I'm not interested, or not my thing, or hey, I gotta go, gotta get out of here.
Go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit to the situation when you discover a child has had more than a casual encounter, and you're trying to figure out what to do about that? Obviously, a lot of people have spoken here about it not being the most productive thing to fill them with shame and tell them, how could they ever have done that? And on the other hand, you don't really want to say, don't worry, everybody's doing this, nothing unusual about you, in a way that would make them think, okay, this is great. How do you navigate that balance?
I got it. So I like acronyms, can-do plan, teamwork, all that. Well, another acronym is SMART, be smart. And I have this on my website. There's 6 articles. Just write SMART in the search thing and you can find it. S, stay calm. So when you find this out, stay calm. Give yourself time. It's probably not the first time they've seen it or been looking at it. You need to give yourself some time to M, make a plan. Talk to your spouse or a friend or family. How do we deal with this? What do we do? Are we going to just take away the technology? Is there going to be a consequence? What are we going to do? And A, assist your child to understand, how pornography is affecting their brain and how it can be, again, confusing. And then R, regularly bring the topic up. Check in with them. Have a regular family meeting, maybe once a month or something, where you talk about media and media choices and all the things you've learned today. And then T, train the entire family. So that may be involving technology, filtering, getting the whole family So it's not just we're restricting you, it's we're protecting our entire family.
We live in a world where some of what I've encountered in interviewing a lot of people who are engaged in this, they will tell you that they got their start not with pornography, but in something just in the sexualized world we live in that drew them in, whether it was a Beyonce video or whether it was some other album art or whether it was some other thing that they saw that on TV, Dad just sat there and watched it go by. What advice do you have for parents about dealing with the sexualized world that we live in and the gateways that are there into pornography use?
So I'm sure a lot of thoughts on this, but I like that last example that you used when you said, drive past the billboard or flip on the channel and you see it. And I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're saying, what do we do to help them?
Yeah, it's just we live in a very sexualized world. We draw the line at pornography. Everybody here is very quick to tell them how to recognize it and identify pornography. And yet, very often what's got them curious at a very young age is something much less than people without clothes, but it's people either thinly clad, to use the old terminology. That's the idea. How do we help our kids maybe do warm-ups for their engagement with pornography by way of the things that they encounter while they're watching TV with us and the Carl's Jr. ad comes on? Yeah,
I love those examples, the Carl's Jr. ad, the billboard, because these are opportunities to when we talk to parents, we often tell them to have conversations with their kids, and we said it earlier, start younger than you think, and it's an ongoing layered conversation that starts sooner than you think and on into their adulthood. So this is something that we're talking about often, and these opportunities like the Carl's Jr. ad and the billboard, rather than pretending it didn't happen or pretending it didn't, you didn't drive past it or it didn't come up on the screen, leveraging those opportunities for educational moments. So making it natural, not doing this whole kind of big, to do like once a week, we're going to dim the lights, get the popcorn, get this, get the projector out, we're going to talk about this. No, use those day-to-day moments to have these dialogues. And it's a perfect opportunity to say, hey, how do you think that, if it's a TV commercial, change the channel, but then talk about it and say, how do you think that was portraying women? What do you think that was teaching you about love or intimacy or healthy sexuality? Let's talk about that. And they can kind of start to digest what they were experiencing. And one of the best things that you as parents can do is help them separate healthy sexuality and unhealthy sexuality. Right now, society puts it into one messy bucket. And it's hard for youth to distinguish what's healthy and unhealthy. And they think that, and some people go too far and think that all sexuality is bad and wrong and evil. And we need to understand kind of, the parameters in which that is, it can be a wonderful and beautiful thing. And so helping them understand healthy and unhealthy. So leveraging that, saying, is that a healthy depiction of intimacy and love and healthy sexuality, and as they can kind of start to dissect that and to separate them, when you're no longer by their side, when you're not in the other seat in the car and they're on their own with their friends, and they experience some form of unhealthy sexuality, whether it be pornography or some of these softer versions, they can kind of digest that and recognize and pinpoint, well, that's actually moving me in this direction, and I don't know what that leads to, and I don't want that. And then they can see a depiction of healthy sexuality, and they can say, I know what that leads to, and that's exactly what I'm going to chase. So I think it's really kind of giving them context to the world that they live in. It's not about sheltering and kind of cocooning them, because they're going to eventually come out, and then boy, we're in trouble. So it's not about cocooning them. It's about giving them context to the world that they live in so that they can kind of navigate accordingly.
I just want to add to that. So in my talk earlier today, I talked about media literacy and just understanding. So even ourselves, I talked about how most of us were raised in a print-based culture, and now we're in an image-based culture, and most of us are image illiterate. We do not know how to read an image. So I think again, so that providing that context, like Clay said, and letting them and talking about what is going on here. Who is the audience? What have they done to change this image to make this look like this fake person, and reiterating over and over again, because not only so before they've even felt the horrible, the traumatic effects of seeing pornography, their body image is being destroyed. I would love to see how many women love their bodies in this room. How many of us are just in love with your body? not one, because we have, and I'm sure men have similar feelings, right? Because we have been bombarded by these images that have taught us to hate the way we look. So right there is a great way to start about having that conversation of, why do you think they're doing that to us? Why are they, and talking about the monetary impact of this. They're doing this to make us feel bad about our bodies so that we buy their products. We buy their purse and buy their hair product so that we can look like that aspirational character that's being portrayed. So using, if you're not ready to have a porn talk, have a talk about media literacy, about the images around us. Start there and talk about what that is doing to us as individuals, as couples, as a society, and how we can kind of turn away from that and stop believing those images, because our minds want to make those true. How many of us look through a magazine or on a billboard and we know it's fake? We know that's been photoshopped, but we still compare ourselves. We still say, if only I don't have we do that to ourselves constantly. So what are our children doing? They're doing the same things. And so we have to teach them to reject that kind of imagery that's being forced down their throats.
I hope this isn't a cocoon question, but it seems like over and over in the presentations today, it's been talked about, kids getting exposed to porn from friends or other kids at school or whatever. And so, of course, we'll try to do the things in our family that will help them identify it, reject it, whatever, and also make our home a safe place by protecting our own technology. But when they go out, when we send them to school or when we send them to friends' houses, what's the appropriate level of helping them protect themselves? And is it appropriate to talk to kids, friends, parents about what their tech rules are, and how do you do that without sounding like a total dork?
Go ahead, dork on, I say, okay? Because again, most of our friends have no idea how bad it is. So they don't, anytime I've talked with parents of middle schoolers, parents, my kids' friends, other friends, when I've spoken, they really don't understand the problem. So it's not that they think that they're above it or they're not going to listen to you. They just really don't know how bad it is. So if you can just kind of say, you know what, there's a lot of, horrible, misogynistic, violent stuff out there. Can we, do you know what's on there? Or do you know how easily accessible it is on our kids' phones? Just start that conversation with them, because that's how we spread this message, is by starting those conversations. And I'm like, go ahead, be a dork. You're not going to be. They're usually going to be on the same page with you, or you're going to enlighten them, and they're going to be grateful to you for enlightening them on that topic. So definitely talk to your kids' friends. Talk to the schools. I've talked with my kids' schools, and they, sometimes they understand certain parts, and some parts they are just they're absolutely not ready to deal with, based on public. Some of my kids have been at a private school, still not ready to deal with some of these issues, but I've started that conversation. You're planting those seeds.
Yeah, or you can just not let them interact with other humans. That's another option. That's what I'm going to do. But just kidding.
I have 4 daughters and a son, and I've been interested today to hear the statistics on women and pornography addiction too. And I was wondering, is there a certain way they target girls in a different way that maybe I could get a better understanding to help warn better daughters versus sons on how you might get targeted?
How old are your daughters?
So the oldest is 17, the youngest is 3.
Have you seen teen lit these days? Have any of you followed the progression of teen literature in the last 10 years, or young adult fiction? It has totally changed over the course of the 10 years. It is so much more pornified. They are grooming these girls for romance novels
through words.
Through words, because that tends to be what the genre that they go for. Now the industry is definitely starting to target women a lot more. There used to be hardly any women watching porn, but then they realized we have this whole market we're not marketing to. So there is pornography that is definitely marketed towards women. They even have pornography called feminist pornography, and there's nothing feminist or empowering about this, let me tell you. It's just as horrific. But there's different ways they're doing it, right? So we have the Cosmo, Cosmo is not read by women my age. Cosmo is read by teenagers, right? Who are learning about sexuality, learning about what it means to be a woman, right? So there's that marketing. And then I definitely have seen a lot of changes. Because teen literature was non-existent 10, 15 years ago, and now it is an exploding market. So I have to read the book, or I have to review everything my daughter reads now, because they have slipped various types of sexuality, all throughout those kinds of books, and those are super popular. My daughter, all of our daughters love these books, and they have them for teenage boys too. But it's mostly the girls that are definitely being targeted, and they're grooming them they're grooming them for pornography.
As an author, I go to writers' conferences, and I know a lot of other authors, and so many of them write young adult fiction. And some of them that do not want to put porn in them get a lot of pressure from publishers to add more, sexual scenes in there. So it is reality. I remember when my daughter was in high school, and she loves science fiction and fantasy. And so she came home with this book from the library, from her school library. And on the back, I'm reading the back, and it had erotic in there. Like, oh, okay, this is a big... So I talked to her about what, of course, that meant. And I said, is this really what you want to be reading? She goes, Mom, but it's a good story. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to let you make your decision. But this is what it's leading to, and this is what I'm afraid is in this book. And she says, you're right. She returned the book. So that was a good decision. But it's everywhere. And so just to be warned about it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, my daughters are big readers. So
Yeah,
that's
they all are.
Yeah.
And we want that, right? We're excited about that, and we're like, yeah.
Clay, did you have something?
Oh, that's good.
This is a little bit more of a personal question. We've answered a lot of it, but what do you do when your ex-husband is a porn addict and your 13-year-old boy, is up there about half the time, and the phone, the Wii U, all the electronic devices came from Dad? So if it's a family thing at my house, it's not really, it's his. And if I say, just do it at Dad's house, I can't go and say, do you have these filters? Well, I don't really want my son coming to your house. Do you have any suggestions on how to handle those things? Like I said, it's kind of personal.
Is that here in Utah?
Yeah.
Is he in Utah?
Yes.
So
but he doesn't admit he's an addict. You mean the father?
He's fine with his behaviors. He's not wanting to quit.
Oh, no, he wasn't an addict. That's not why he had the affairs and we divorced. I mean,
Got it.
He is.
Got it.
I would just say, I know there's a law that was passed here that for visitation rights, if you can show that, and you might want to help me.
Right. Well, I heard that in that class, but I have no proof that he showed my son anything.
Right.
But there are stepbrothers there that are his age and they don't share the same religious beliefs or any of that. So I don't know what he has access to.
I think that it stems from, maybe it's a more exaggerated case of what all teens are experiencing. They're all going to be going to Dad's for the weekend or leaving the house to experience, the world outside of your walls. And they're all going to have those kind of encounters. So I think the same things apply to that situation that apply to everybody's situation, and that is that to give them the appropriate understanding, the tools themselves, if necessary, add the technology aspects. But at least give them the power to kind of, when they are encountered with it, at that time that they have that context and they have that understanding and desire to reach for something more than what porn provides. And so
what about taking the devices away when he's at my house?
Well, so I'm a big proponent of giving context to decisions like that. So rather than just taking them away, because then that fuels this rebellious
but I mean, like this
energy.
Family thing, like I don't.
Oh yeah. The basket thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's the
even
rules
though
of your
Dad
house.
gave him, it's his.
No, that's the rules of your house. I think that's just fine. But I also think that helping them understand what things can lead to, giving them context of that, so that when you do want to kind of push rules or guidelines or limitations, that they have context as to why those are put in place, and it's not just because you're no fun.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm coming up against.
Yeah. So give him context, give him empowerment, give him knowledge, so that when he is at his dad's house, he knows. He knows.
Okay.
Something, and I know Clay can speak to this, but something that I've heard affects teens and people that are addicted, that makes them want to stop, is this link between
pornography and sex trafficking, because it's very cool and politically correct to everybody be against sex trafficking, right? And people want to disconnect the link between that and pornography. But teens really have a keen sense of fairness and justice. And if you can say, every time you click on on pornography, you're voting for sex trafficking, and here's the link, and I'm hoping Clay will speak to this, because that, I think, is one thing that kids will really resonate with.
Yeah, and my son, you did do your presentation at my son's school, and I also heard it, so.
What school was that?
American Fork Junior High.
Cool. So to kind of bounce off of what Kristen was saying about the sex trafficking industry, it's amazing. Studies have been done on the millennial generation, the generation growing up today, and generations, the younger generations. They are far more motivated than by social justice and fairness and kind of a social responsibility than they are status and comfort and money that previous generations have been more motivated by. And so this really is a kind of a different genre of young kids growing up today. And when you put that in front of them, just like Kristen said, you say that this is connected, and oftentimes we like to separate sex trafficking and pornography when in fact that they are the same industry, they're the sexual exploitation industry, and help them understand that more often than we think that supporting pornography is supporting violence against women and abuse and forcing these women to do things that they don't want to do. That lights a fire underneath these young kids' seats, and obviously we don't bring that into the picture until they're kind of old enough to comprehend some of those things. But once they are, and we bring that up, it gets them angry and motivated to make change. And when you combine that with the understanding of the neuroscience and the relationship side, that combination, that cocktail of knowledge is just enough for them to say, that's it. Not cool. I'm not going to stand for that, and I'm going to do something about it. And so when they're then at their dad's house or wherever, and something comes up, and they have at that point, it's no longer my mom's morals, it's mine, and I don't want to stand for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
We probably have time for let's see, we're supposed to end here just in a little bit, so we'll probably have time for a couple more questions. Is Judy around? Judy, did we get any written ones? Okay, so anybody that had a question has been asking them. Good. Okay.
I have a question kind of on a slightly different perspective from this. Not of children viewing pornography, but of in a social media world, how do you protect your children? I'm a photographer. I love showing my beautiful work. How do you protect them from being exploited by, I've just heard these terrible, awful, horrible stories about babies and children images being used and distorted in baby pornography sites, and I don't know how people even find out that that's happened to them, and I'm pretty careful about what I post of my child, but it still just scares a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's scary. Actually, I have a personal story about that. The other day, during the big snowstorm, for those of you who were in Utah during that big snowstorm, I came home and my front door was locked and I didn't have my key, so I went to the back where we have this door with a big kind of window, and I knock on the door, and my little daughter comes up. She's 2 years old. She's the cutest little redhead ever. She comes up to the door and she's just naked, and she just looks in the window and just is looking there. And I thought it was so cute that I took a picture of it and I sent it to my wife. I was like, how hilarious is this little child, coming to the door naked? And I said to her just like a joke, I should post that. She says, don't you dare. And I go, why not? And she's like a little girl. She's like, don't you dare. I just heard an article, blah, 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 don't post your kids naked. And I was like, oh my goodness, good point. I never thought of that. And so it kind of reiterated to me that, and this is the world I live in, to absolutely be careful about the images that we post of our children, naked or clothed. Be careful about, how we push things on the internet for ourselves and our children. There's a lot of individuals that have reported having their images stolen and then kind of doctored and manipulated. So and that is completely illegal, and it does happen, and in some cases has caused many heartache, much heartache and many challenges in individuals' lives that occurs too. Because later on in life, when they want to get into college or find someone to spend the rest of their life with or get a job, oftentimes those images can come back to haunt them. Now, if they had no part in it, oftentimes it doesn't. But if they, regardless of what those images are, whether they've participating in sexting, which is a very common practice among youth today, those images definitely stay out on the web. So I'm just validating your concern and saying let's be careful about what gets posted online and what survives in the digital world. But as far as what to do about it, be careful. Kristen, do you have any other thoughts?
I would just say that us here, we don't think that looking at a naked child is a sexual thing, but that there are people out there that it is a sexual thing for them. So again, even baby pictures, cover them up. Don't show the sexual organs of a child, because that is going to be a turn on for people that have trained their brain to be sexually aroused by children.
On that sad note, we'll take one more question, but we will also uplift it by just saying that there's a lot of positivity, and there's the fact that all of you are here and have come and taken your entire Saturday to discuss this and understand this issue a little bit better. It is motivating and inspiring to see how many people have come and that come each year and that are trying to make a difference in their community. So I applaud you, and I'm very excited about this. And one more question, then we'll conclude.
Well, kind of a comment too on what you're talking about. I teach junior high, and it's not just parents posting pictures of their own children, but teenagers posting pictures of themselves.
Sure.
And trading back and forth, and you did mention that. But our children need to know that it's against the law.
Yeah.
And we tell them we have these assemblies, and we teach this, and we teach this, and we teach this, and you have come to our school too as well. But they still keep doing it, and they still keep doing it, and they still think they're invincible, and they still think they're not going to get caught, and they do, and it's scary. And so it is good to have these kinds of things and what we've learned, but so more of a comment than a question.
Yeah.
But it's there, and it does happen at schools.
Those images are considered child pornography, so possessing or sending those images
And so many of the
are
kids
illegal.
think, well, I didn't know it was against the law.
Yeah.
And it can ruin their futures.
Oh, yeah. And I have several stories about how it has for individuals. You have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to tell one of those stories.
Oh, yeah.
Not to leave on a sad note, but yeah, a 17-year-old boy, his girlfriend broke up with him, and he had an image of her that was, I think he doctored up and everything, that he sent it out. And actually, he was 18. That's the kicker. And he was put in jail. Mm-hmm. Ruined his life and put in jail for several years because his girlfriend was under age 18.
Yeah, and we have stories of girls that have gotten those images taken. They send it to their boyfriend. It gets out there, and because of that, one girl committed suicide because she thought her life was over. This is a huge issue. Sexting today among youth is a massive problem. Many boys push their girlfriends to participate in that, saying that if they don't do it, that they will break up with them, and it's a norm. If I'm either going to look at you or pornography, and which one would you rather have? And that's the common understanding. And a lot of these girls are pressured into participating if they want to have a relationship with this individual. And at that age, where they don't have kind of their own personal empowerment, they feel they have to fit in. So it's a massive problem among youth. And again, that educating piece, help our youth understand what's really going on. We're so thankful that you guys took the time to stay longer. The fact that we have this many people at the later stages of the conference, I'm so surprised. So thank you so much. Thanks to Kristen. And Dina took off.
Yeah, Dina had to catch a plane, so she wanted me to explain why she had to leave a little bit
She was
early.
She was offended by an earlier comment, but anyway, no problem.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.